All right, this is our next episode of True Wrestling Fans Discussions, continuing our retro pay-per-view review series. This is going to be Survivor Series 1996. I'm your host, Mike.
I'm Frank, man. Let's jump right into this. Uh, November 17th, 1996, at Madison Square Garden in Manhattan, you had Vince McMahon, Jerry Lawler, Jim Ross for part of it until Lawler had to get in the ring, and then eventually Sonny comes in for a thing, and Vince makes an ass out of himself. So they actually had one match that was on the what was called back then the free for all. I'm sure a lot of people remember that. You can get it on the USA Network right before the pay-per-view. Now I could see why they put this match on the free for all because it was Aldo Montoya, Bart Gunn, Bob Holly, and Jesse James beating Billy Gunn, Justin Bradshaw, Salvatore Sincere, and the Sultan.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with Iron Sheik and Uncle Zebekiah at ringside because you got Justin Hawk Bradshaw, whatever his gimmick was in '96. That man
That
had more gimmicks, I swear, than Brutus Beefcake.
I think that free-for-all kind of took the place of the pre-show. Do you remember there was like a countdown before the pay-per-view started? I think it was maybe like 30 minutes prior.
Yeah,
You could watch, there was 30 minutes, they do promos and stuff like that. And then that was free on the pay-per-view channel, but then once the pay-per-view went on, if you didn't order it, obviously
you're gone.
you were gone. So I've said this before in previous episodes. I went to see this. I was at Madison Square Garden that night with my friend Dave. We went to see the Survivor Series. Funny little story. We almost didn't make it. So we were like 15 years old at this time, and I don't think it was my mother that really cared, but I think it was Dave's mother didn't want us to go, just us two. So me and Dave concocted this story that my older brother was coming with us, but he never was. For whatever reason, he didn't get a ticket. It was just us two. So we lied. But then I went to go meet up with Dave, and then his mom was like, and his aunt was there too. Was like, "Oh, where's your brother?" And then like we just got basically got caught in a lie, right? And then his mom didn't want us to go, and then like his mother had to have a sit down with my mother, and then
Oh
like
my God.
they basically were like, my mom kind of like swayed her, like they're gonna be all right, they're old enough, they take. At that time, I mean I was taking the train to go to school anyways by myself,
Everybody at that age
and it
was.
was and I was explaining, I was like, look, it's a large crowd of people. It's not like
Exactly.
we're in the middle of Manhattan by ourselves, and but parents, they're
And the train station's right there by the
right,
garden.
right, but yeah. So we got there. So yeah, that was my story of almost not making Survivor Series '96.
You're like, look, ma, I'm not missing Brett and Steve Austin
Yeah,
here. No, no way. I'll take
no, no,
whatever
no.
punishment you
Hmm.
got after.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's funny.
So so a little note, like Bret Hart is back on the poster in this one. I don't know if
Hmm.
you noticed this, and I meant to mention this in the last episode. Bret Hart was in the main event versus Diesel
Hmm.
at the previous Survivor Series 1995, and he wasn't even on the poster. It was Diesel and Shawn Michaels.
Yeah,
They're on the poster. Now, on the VHS Coliseum home video, it's Bret and Diesel. But on the actual poster, that's how much like Bret was like a like a placeholder for the title and was like an afterthought. They were running with
the click
HBK
was running with
and they
everything.
were running with Diesel. Well, they wanted to go in that direction. Bret, he said this himself, they kind of like used him in a way, like just to kind of get guys over and just okay, this isn't working. We'll put the title on Bret for a little while and go forward. So now he's got his new contract and he's back on the poster.
And gone a year later.
Yep. Ironically enough, signed a 20-year deal and only last 1 year. That's another story.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that in the next review. In any event, our opening contest was Doug Furnace, Philip LaFon, and the Godwins
No Jesus.
versus Owen Hart, British Bulldog, the tag team champions, and the new Rockers, Marty
Right.
Jannetty and Leaf Cassidy.
What do we always
Yes,
say about the new or 2000 in front of
it's
it?
never gonna work. You might as well just have called them the Rockers and got it
Right.
over with.
Hmm.
Just like when they had the Blackjacks, same thing. And this match was actually pretty good. Furnace and LaFon were always great athletes. They just weren't given their chance in WWE, I guess, because they weren't there for that long, maybe a year, if that. Because they were on the pay per view the following year in Survivor Series, but they didn't do much in between.
I mean, they had the look, but
Yeah,
then the bell rang.
exactly. So, I mean, the match wasn't that bad. I mean, Furnace and LaFon were the sole survivors of this one. So, I mean, obviously at the time, Vince saw something in them or gave them
No, he
their
was high on
opportunity.
them. He was high on them. Did you notice Janetti got hurt during the match?
Yes.
It was legitimate. he was hurt. You could tell.
Oh yeah, there were quite a few botches in this pay per
Yeah.
view.
Mark Merrill. We'll get into that. I think it was. I think it was a botch.
Oh,
I
oh
think
yeah, with whatchamacallit, who?
it was a Survivor match.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who the hell he almost
Yeah.
hurt.
Well,
The,
himself. He almost killed himself.
well, no, I'm
We'll
also
get into
thinking of
that.
the
Yeah.
year later because the year later he actually hurt. That's what I was thinking. He
Yeah.
actually hurt LaFon,
Oh, okay.
literally. So that's when you said
That's
when
fine.
Mark Mallory botched. I'm thinking of that.
No, no,
My
you
bad.
know. Yeah.
I'm jumping ahead here because
Yeah.
I've watched both of them already here.
Um,
So yeah, Furnace and LaFon get him. Yeah, Vince is high on him. Vince is always high on somebody, and then he takes a nap or goes to sleep, wakes up the next day, goes, they're bums.
yeah. Get him out of here.
It's like a cup of coffee with Vince. You can never tell. But I mean, Owen and Bulldog always look great. Jannetty, I didn't like him as a heel. He was a cocky little son of a bitch. But he also his wrestling kind of toned down when he was a heel.
Yeah.
So he didn't do the high flying stuff like he did. If these guys
Because
were
they
fan
don't want
favorites, they
him.
might have made him something.
That's the thing. They don't. As a heel, you don't want the crowd popping for the heel too much. So if Jannetty's doing his tricks, they're gonna start popping, and so kind of limited what he could do as a
I
heel.
never understood why they turned him heel anyway.
Never bought it. Never bought
Never
it.
made any sense. It hurt them, to be honest. And then this is Jannetty's ticket out,
Yeah.
and they got to
See,
re-gimmick Leaf
see,
Cassidy.
yeah, yeah.
So our next match, this was actually interesting. Paul Bearer suspended in a shark cage above the ring as the Undertaker faces Mankind. Now this was a new look for the Undertaker.
Yeah.
This is the first time he came out in the all leather. He had the teardrop under his eye. It's
This guy.
funny because Jim Ross says, "Oh, he's got something under his eye," and Vince was like, "Oh, well, the both of them have been injured, battered over the course of months of fighting each other." I'm like, "No, idiot, it's a tattoo or something."
This guy, Pritchard calls this pirate taker for the look. He calls him pirate taker. Apparently, he didn't like that name either.
Whatever.
But yeah, this was this feud had been going on for a while now. And it's gonna keep going on.
This was one of Taker's best feuds. This brought the
Oh yeah, no,
more vicious side of him out, and
this
it
might
also
between this feud and Kane, these are the two. His
Mhm.
probably best two feuds.
And this helped Mankind come into the WWE as he can play with the guys that are elevated, and he could be that he's not just this crazy wackadoo that came from WCW
Yeah,
that nobody wanted to work with.
they had fought at King of the Ring,
Mm-hmm.
then they had fought at SummerSlam, right? And then they fought at In Your House. It was buried alive.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was on my birthday
and,
too. Undertaker died on my birthday.
well, I'm sorry. Goldberg won the title from Triple H on my birthday,
There you go.
so I was actually happy about that.
But it's funny. I remember when Undertaker came down. I remember this vividly because I was in the arena and I remember like
Where were you sitting at?
I wasn't quite in nosebleeds,
Okay.
but I wasn't in nosebleeds. I was probably like below, like a level below. It was pretty decent. It wasn't too bad. But I remember it vividly. I just remember him coming down. I don't know why. That's ingrained. So when I watch it, I remember like where I was sitting and how I saw it from that vantage point as opposed to how they showed it, on I think it looked cooler in person.
By which match did you lose your voice?
Oh, that was
Because you know what happened.
Yeah, I mean, by the end,
I
remember
remember.
by Bret.
I remember when I went to the Royal Rumble 2000 at the Garden. I lost my voice as soon as Taz came out. Like I was so hyped about that because that was the most kept secret. Nobody really knew. And when he fought Kurt Angle, I lost it. I was a Taz fan in ECW,
and that was the high point of his career. And then it was all downhill from there.
Yeah, seriously.
So anyway,
I mean, these two guys just batted and bruised himself. Now the stipulation was Undertaker gets the victory. He gets his hands on Paul Bearer.
He's trying to reach him inside the cage.
Yeah.
He could have reached him too. Like,
I know. They just had to make it like he couldn't.
Yeah.
These two guys, I mean, you got thrown through the table. Oh, poor Tito got hurt in the Mexican announce table, the Hispanic announce table. I don't see Tito really didn't get hurt. They're just placating him. But how he launched him, I mean, these guys just, man, this match was, there was never a bad Undertaker Mankind match. To me, the best was King of the Ring 98. So, I mean, it was great. Undertaker gets the victory on this one. But, of course, he doesn't get his hands on Paul Bearer. Why? Because the Executioner comes out. Executioner happens to be Terry Bam Bam Gordy,
yeah,
who was literally there for a cup of coffee. because he fights him at the next In Your House, and then
And that's
off he
it.
goes. That's it. He's going. Well,
Waste.
his career was dwindling down as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he was up in age at this point.
Man, I thought it was unnecessary.
It was, especially in execution. How many
Yeah.
times have we used that name? So, but this was to culminate the feud between the two,
Not even
but
close.
it never did. No, they
Kept,
brought it back up in the following year.
just kept going. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The next match was actually interesting.
I just real quick.
Uh,
I remember after this, I was like, I just wanted to get rid of this guy, man. Like this guy's like, he's like a cockroach. Like the
yeah.
cockroaches just keep coming back. And he's like, he just keeps coming back.
Oh, as a fan back then, I'm like, oh, come on with this guy. He's making Taker look bad, especially at SummerSlam. I was cursing. I was like, no, come on. They took Paul Bearer away from him.
You know what's funny is that I remember thinking like when Mankind first attacked him on Raw, I think it was the night after WrestleMania 12, right? I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's when he started.
If I remember. I just remember thinking this was like a one-off. Like, oh, he's gonna fight him just one-off, and then that's it. Who knew this is gonna be one of the greatest rivalries of all time?
Seriously. And Mankind would have more rivalries to come.
Right.
Especially with the only guy to show up in the Rumble 3 different times with 3 different gimmicks. Right. I don't know. We might see 6 gimmicks at this next one with this Bray Wyatt thing. Yeah. So our next match was you had the captain. I guess it was Jerry Lawler. I don't know. They never mentioned it. I gave it to him. Jerry Lawler crush for the 2nd year in a row. Hunter Hearst Helmsley, at this point the Intercontinental Champion, because at this point, a week prior, this is when Perfect walked out.
Yeah.
And Triple H, they say now he kicked him to the curb. Of course, they have to save face on him.
Meanwhile, he quit to go to WCW.
Exactly. And then you had Goldust on the team. And on the other side, you had Mark Merrow, the Rocky Maivia making his debut, the Stalker, Barry Windham. Good Lord, these gimmicks they gave him. And it was supposed to be Mark Henry on this team, but Henry has sustained an injury or whatnot. So they replaced him with Jake the Snake Roberts. Beer Belly, Jake the Snake Roberts.
He got to go pop, though. He got to go pop.
And he got a good DDT on Lawler.
Oh, yeah.
It was nice. I mean, 96 was the year of comebacks, and it was the year of the comebacks with the shitty storylines.
Yeah.
Case in point, Warrior and Roberts. Because they both had to face Lawler. And Warrior going up against him and Goldust, I was like, oh, come on, what is this?
Waste.
And then when Jake Roberts comes back, they're using his alcoholism against him. Then he has to placate himself as being drunk coming down. I mean, come on, man, this was all stupid. No, this wasn't the Jake we knew. So this match was pretty good. I like the fact that that the kid Rocky Maivia it came down to a 2-on-1, and he was able to become the sole survivor. I think the highlight of this thing was Mark Merrow and his aerial tactics, although one too many.
So there's a spot where he jumps out of the ring, and it looked like he actually hurt himself. To me, I thought he injured himself when he misses. Mm-hmm. He jumps out of the ring and he falls on the mat. It looked like he messed up his shoulder. The commentary on this was great with Sunny when Sunny came out to do the commentary, and her and JR are going back and forth, and she's just trashing Sable. She's trashing Sable, and then JR was like, this is like a weird point with JR because he's like
it actually sounded like he legitimately was pissed off.
Right, he's a heel and he's a babyface at the same time because
that's what I thought they were going to do. I thought they were going to turn JR heel because when they brought back the imposter Diesel and Ramon,
that's what it looked like.
It's like he was anti WWE at that point.
It was weird. I don't know, but anyway.
And then of course Vince over there dancing to Sonny's music, and I'm like, dude, sit down.
Yeah, Sonny looked pretty good though. That was but that was a long time ago.
Now Jesus. So Rocky Maivia becomes a sole survivor. This would be obviously a sign of great things to come. And career's still not over. Yeah,
he came out with his hair was all high, and he was smiling. They were chanting Rocky, but it's funny because not so long after that becomes Die Rocky Die, and Rocky sucks.
I never understood why they were doing that.
Because it was forced. Because they forced him to be a white meat babyface, as they call in the industry.
And I guess also being pushed up very fast.
and then
Because
lucky
shortly
for him.
after this, he becomes the Intercontinental Champion and beats Hunter Hearst
Yeah,
Helmsley.
but he had no personality. He was just like smiling, and then eventually they let him be himself, and you know who he becomes, one of the best of all time.
Oh yeah, and it paid off once he came back from his injury and he came back to the
Hmm.
nation. So our next match after this is one of my all-time favorites. I love this. Stone Cold Steve Austin has even thanked Bret Hart for working with him because this elevated him as well. This was a number one contenders match for the WWE Championship. The return of the Bret the
Hmm.
Hitman Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, and this was months of just Stone Cold just going attacking Bret. Besides Pillman, so I love when he said, "If you put the S in front of Hitman, you get the
Nice.
feel, the true meaning of Bret Hart." I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
these interviews, these
yeah.
things that they did were just awesome.
That was great. I always remember that line.
It was just
Yeah,
ever since Austin 316, and then he started in on Bret Hart. It was awesome.
yeah. And Bret
This was
had
one of the best feuds ever.
and Bret had handpicked him,
Hmm.
handpicked him to work with because after WrestleMania, a lot of people don't know this, but they actually went on, I think it was a European tour, and they did wrestle against each other. Even though Brett storyline wise was gone after WrestleMania, they actually
Yeah.
did I think it was a European tour,
Hmm.
and they got to work together. And Brett said, "Okay, this is the guy I want to work with when I come back." Had just signed his contract, and which didn't last very long. But
Yeah.
great match though, great build up, great match.
I loved it. I loved
Hmm.
the whole 8 months that they went with this. Just everything they did was just entertaining, and it was phenomenal
Hmm.
to me. And this and the match with themselves here. Now I don't know if you knew this, but on Brett's outfit, it was always a lighter color. But you notice when he comes back here, it's darker.
It's dark, yeah. It's more like a
A
burgundy.
darker, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want, is that a sign of things to come? He still had the same attitude that he when he left with
Hmm.
in '95 when he came back more aggressive. He was more aggressive in this match. He hadn't lost a beat in the ring. There was no ring rust, and
Fighting outside the ring.
oh,
It was good
everywhere.
stuff. Yeah.
And what was awesome was he did the same thing from WrestleMania 8
Yep.
to get the victory when they had the $1 million dream on him, and he used the leverage, flipped him over, and was able to pin Austin at
Yeah.
that point.
Which is what he did to Roddy Piper when Roddy Piper had him in a sleeper hold.
Hmm.
Get the
And
IC
you
belt.
and you noticed during this match that Vince was mentioning, he goes, "Oh, could we be seeing Brett versus Shawn Michaels next month?" And then Ross had to go, "Well, it could also be Psycho Sid."
Yeah.
And it was almost like they were wanting this match at that point. And
Back then,
I'm,
the
I'm wondering, did they not have that match on purpose at the In Your House? Because I know they were building it they wanted to do it at WrestleMania.
they wanted to do a WrestleMania. That was always the plan. We'll
And
get
we know that originally it was supposed to be Vader
Vader, yeah.
that the title got dropped to
Vader got the
instead.
title from Shawn Michaels. That was the original plan. But then
But
Shawn,
he didn't want to work with Vader because
yeah,
he
Shawn
thought he
hated
was a
him.
sweaty beast and
Yeah.
whatnot, which I thought was stupid, but whatever.
Back then, it's the shame of this, and I meant to mention this in the last video we did on the previous Survivor Series. Was like back then the titles meant something because I remember Bret Hart was a two-time WWF champion, two-time Intercontinental champion, two-time,
Tag team
tag, and that
champion.
was huge. It was a huge thing that he had two, two, two. And
Hmm.
then when he won it for the third time, besides Hogan, nobody held the belt that
Yeah.
long, and that was a lot. Now the titles just get flipped around like nothing.
I mean,
I
you
miss
did
those
have
days when it meant something.
exactly. I mean, we did have two-time Bruno Sammartino, but as far that was the only title he held. So for Brett to hold everything twice was amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, Hogan held it
At that point, it was the fourth time.
five
I think it was. It could be 4 or 5. I forget.
five time, I believe.
Up until that point, the last
Yeah,
time he won it from when he won it from Yokozuna, what was that? That was the
that was five.
that was 5. You sure?
Yeah, because they counted his victory on Undertaker. That was four, even though they took it from him. Because he won it. Savage was two, Slaughter was three, Taker was four, and then Yoko was
That's
five.
right. That's correct.
Because then he wins it one more time in '02, and he's a
Yeah.
former six-time
Yeah,
champion.
there you go. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So yeah, Brett was the only one besides Hogan to carry it more,
Hmm.
which was saying something. And I mean, so now Bret Hart is set up for the In Your House coming up to face either Shawn
And there's
Michaels
it.
or um, Psycho Sid. Our next Survivor Series match was, oh my God, this was, I guess, I don't even know who the captains were on these teams. I'm just going to say who was on them because it did. Obviously, on one it was Farouk. with Diesel, Razor Ramon, and Vader.
But it's a fake Razor Ramon.
Fake Diesel and Razor Ramon. Actually, I'm telling you, and I've said this before, Isaac Yankem could have pulled it off further. He did look the part. The other guy, not
People
so
just,
much.
yeah, people just hated it, and I hated it, and I thought it was so stupid. I'm like, what's the point of this? I think they
Hey,
really thought they were going to replace them.
it got Hall and Nash a bigger contract to WCW
Supposedly,
because
supposedly, I don't know.
well,
I don't know
well,
if I buy
Hall
that story.
well, Hall and Nash came out and said that Bischoff came to them with a
I know,
blank
yeah,
checkbook
yeah.
to write in their amount, and then when Bischoff saw that on Raw that they came
They were
out
there,
the
yeah.
imposters, they just looked at him and went stupid.
I don't know. No, supposedly.
Allegedly, according
Yeah,
to
yeah,
them,
yeah,
Bischoff has never backed the story up
yeah. Yeah. But
as far as saying that.
the Nation of Domination without any of the members that we know, basically.
Exactly, it was
Right?
just
The
it was
rappers,
PG 13,
right?
Clarence Mason, and some bodyguards. It wasn't even
Yeah.
D'Lo yet.
No, you don't have D'Lo, you don't have Mark Henry, you don't have The Rock, and you don't have
And this was even before the
Kama
Savio
Mustafa.
Crush that got in there.
Oh, I don't even count that. That's like
I know that was cheesy.
that was
That was so
terrible.
bad.
Yeah.
But and then they're facing the debut of Flash Funk, Too Cold Scorpio.
Do you know the story of how he became Flash Funk? You know, he gets signed. He goes
Yeah,
into Vince's office with his wife. And then Vince asks him, it's like, oh, what do you like to do? Or what are you good at? And his wife says, oh, you know, my husband's a really good dancer. He's like, really? And then Too Cold Scorpio's like, yeah, no, I'm a really good dancer. And then that's when, all right, we'll make him Flash Funk and he'll
and the
come out dancing.
Funkettes.
Well, should have
That
just left him at Too
that
Cold Scorpio, man. What?
exact. Well, eventually he does just call him Scorpio the following year. You
But
know,
by then it was already
it was
over.
over. Yeah, he wasn't getting traction in
Yeah.
WWE, and that's where this reminds me of when Undertaker talks about how he told Vince what he liked to do, and he said, "Well, I like to dance and whatnot." And then all of a sudden, he thought he was going to be Eggman
We
in
gotta
Survivor Series.
we gotta assume Ahmed Johnson was supposed to be in this match originally, right?
Yeah, this he was injured at the again at this point, and that's a feud that to me just went on way too long. That
Well,
really that hurt his career.
it was snake bit from the beginning because as soon as he got hurt, Farouk kicked him in the stomach, and he had to have
Yeah.
surgery. It was
Hmm.
just snake bit from the beginning. The shame of it is, a year prior when he debuted at 95, man, they were really putting him over, and he slammed Yokozuna. So they were strapping the rocket to his back and
He was
sending
going
him
to take off and be
sending him
something
off.
big,
Yeah,
but
and then
unfortunately, they this feud took on too long, and then he joins them
more stupid.
only for a brief minute, and then they get rid of him, and then it's people are like, the hell with this bomb.
Yeah. Yeah, they said he
Because
had
then
a bad attitude also. He said it was bad luck and bad attitude. So
yeah, I could kind of see it, especially come '97 Survivor Series when he fought the Nation.
yeah.
But again, this feud was just way too long. But Funk was he joined by Savio Vega, Yokozuna. I'm surprised he got to the ring.
He looked terrible.
741 he weighed in at this one.
He didn't look good.
This was like one
He
of the
leaves.
last times you see him too,
All right.
because
His
they
last paper.
released. Well, yeah, this last pay per view, but they
Yeah.
didn't release him until May of '98 because they had to keep replacing him because he couldn't lose the weight. And then when he finally lost the weight, he comes back and Vince is ready to put him on Raw. He gained it back in a week. Because the reason for this, he wanted to be the world's biggest wrestler to tap in at 850 to 900 pounds. But the problem with that is you can't do anything in the ring. Look at when he came into the one time he came into the ring in this match illegally. He could barely do anything.
Yeah.
He was holding onto the ring post because he couldn't stand up on the apron by himself.
Yeah, it was terrible. Sad.
And all of a sudden he speaks the King's English here too. You gotta love that. The whole time he's with Fuji, it's I barely
Bonsai.
speak English. Bosnai Ishne or whatever the hell. Now it's I'm gonna lay your ass out
Yeah.
when it came to Vader when he returned fanfare.
No, they did say he was from the Polynesian Islands, right? I think they said he was. Yeah. So
Yeah, and if anybody remembers when he was in the Independents working the dark matches with WWE, he was Coquinus Maximus, and he did an interview and he could speak.
yeah.
So, and then the last participant on the team was Superfly Jimmy Snuka, who was just inducted into the Hall of Fame the night before by Don Morocco, one of his biggest rivals. So I thought that was cool. Snuka didn't look too bad. We hadn't seen him. This is like 5 years since WrestleMania
Yeah.
7. So I mean, age was catching up to him. He was still active though. He had wrestled in ECW, did the independent circuit. So this match was just a 9 minute 50-second brawl. I think that there was one elimination, Savio Vega, and then this match was labeled a no contest because they just started beating the crap out of each other. And this was mainly Vader and Yoko's feud, but where the rest of these guys come in to the
Vader,
match.
man. Talk about a fall from grace, man. He was just in a heavyweight program on his way to get the title, and now look.
He came in 90 Rumble in 96, built up big, fights Shawn at SummerSlam, and for whatever reason, Shawn's like, I'm not working with this bum
Yeah.
again. And nothing gets done with him really in 97, a feud with Taker, a tag team title shot, and then he's a fan favorite.
Yeah.
And
Kane
then
breaks his face. Kane breaks
yeah,
his
and
face
then
in that.
1998 he loses every pay-per-view till up until September.
Yeah.
Every person he faces, Bradshaw, it didn't matter who he fought, he lost. It was just a shame. And he on his last pay-per-view he said, I'm just a fat piece of shit. And that was the last time we saw him.
Jesus.
I mean that's just, to me it was wrong to at least do that to him
I know,
in
but
'98. I don't know. Was he a guy to work with in the back? Did he get along? I don't know. I just know that this man came from WCW. He's a recognized champion, and from what happened at the end of '96 through '98, I mean, he held his own in '97, especially when he teaming with the Patriot or fighting the Bulldog and Bret or whatnot. I've always said that the Montreal Screwjob could have been avoided if they just put the belt on Vader. Bret goes into the sunset, and then Shawn beats him for the title the following month. I mean, there were ways. We talked about this in the
hmm
Montreal episode. There were ways to avoid that.
hmm
Unfortunately, it would have been Vader, but whatever. I just think how he was treated was wrong. So now our main event for the WWE Championship, Shawn Michaels defending against Psycho Sid. Now, Shawn was coming off as the heel in this one. They were booing him, and they were cheering Sid
No, I know.
like Sid was the underdog that's finally going to get his
I was in the
opportunity.
building, man. Everyone was going crazy. They were cheering for
Right?
Sid. Yeah, they were both baby faces at this point. I think people
Mm-hmm.
forget that sometimes. Sid wasn't bad yet. They were friends again, and then they were kind of feuding, but he
I
was
don't
still a
think he ever went bad going forward. I think it
yeah, he
was
did.
just,
No, he goes bad tonight. This is the night he becomes a heel.
they
No,
were
Jose,
cheering him for that. I mean, I could
yeah,
see how going
but
forward, but
going forward, yeah.
he was even a fan favorite at some points in the '98 pay-per-views before he left. '97, excuse me. But okay, yeah, I guess you could say that. I don't know.
It was a
What,
good
because
build.
he hit Lothario? I mean,
Yeah, then he hit
Sean
Sean.
Sean does the same thing at the Rumble, and they still cheered him.
He hit Lothario, and then he hit Sean, and then I think he beats up Jose Lothario's son, right? Like going into the Royal Rumble, I think.
Yeah,
He beat up his son. So he was a heel after this point. But he was getting cheered. Great match. Sean did a great job making Sid look like $1 million.
oh yeah. So it's definitely selling the power. You know what this reminded me of with the Lothario thing? This reminded me of Rocky 3
Rocky him, yeah, yeah,
with
yeah.
Clubber Lang, and Mickey is in the back. He's on his deathbed. Rocky's head's not in the match. Once Lothario got hit with that, it's like Sean was just not in the match. He goes, "All right, fine, I got pinned,"
He
and then
has to
he's
save
back
because
out.
he hit him with a super kick, and he saw Lothario was down. Apparently, in real life, he couldn't stand Lothario, according to Jim
Sean?
Cornette. Jim Cornette, yeah, he didn't like him. He used to treat him like garbage. This is according to Jim Cornette, so I don't know.
Oh
Maybe
yeah,
the
well,
truth
because
is
we could
in.
take everything he says with a grain of
I don't,
salt.
I, I don't know. He doesn't like Sean either, so but who knows? But
Cornette don't like anybody,
yeah, but yeah,
but
it was Rocky and Mick, yeah.
it reminded me of that he gave it up and then he went back to his manager, and it was a good. I always thought it was funny because I'm like, okay, Brett just won the number one contendership, and now Sean just happens to lose the title.
Yeah, ref gets knocked out in the course of the match.
Naturally.
And he hits what do you do? He hit Sean with the camera, right? Power
Yeah,
bombs him.
yeah, he hit Lothario with it, and then he hit Sean with it. Our famous WrestleMania fan, the bald guy with the glasses, gave Sid a hug, tell him you're the best. That guy
He
had
was
to have
over,
some.
man. Sid was so over. Remember he's fist pumping the crowd, every crowd.
Yeah,
Yeah, they were cheering him.
they were cheering
And he
him
won.
more, and they were booing Sean.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was weird.
This was a kind of a turn. This is kind of like the with Austin too, a kind of leaning towards kind of like the anti-hero.
Yes,
This is a sign
because
of things to come.
it seemed like everybody in '97 had a vicious streak in them, regardless if you were a fan
Yeah,
favorite or not. Just seemed like '97 was a really pissed off
yeah.
year.
But this was a great match. And so
Yes,
these two matches, Brett and Austin, Sean and Sid, that made this card.
definitely.
That made this card. So it
And
was
the card wasn't that bad to
no, it was
begin
good.
with.
It was pretty good. But those two matches, like it put it over the top.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know. All right. So you guys let us know what you think about the Survivor Series. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. See you guys soon.
Take care.